Yo, what's up, Serpa Squad? Tanner here, and I'm back with another low-tech aquascape. Many of you have been requesting another one, and now is a good time. This idea came to me after making the new fire-bellied toad paludarium last month. During that process, I accidentally bumped the tank off of a board and broke the back pane of glass. Not a problem. Accidents happen, and that means we can repurpose it and make something new. Let's get to work. First things first, I have to dismantle the aquarium. I've shown this process before and it's really easy. I cut through the frame and break the seal with a putty knife. This loosens the frame so it can be removed in sections. After that, I cut along the silicone seams and between the pieces of glass. Then they can be separated from one another. I scraped the old silicone off the individual pieces. The largest pieces are 36 inches long, so I decided to make that the width of the new aquarium. That means fewer cuts and less work. Like usual, I scored the glass with a cutting wheel and snapped them down to size on my workbench. If you want a more thorough explanation on this process, I'll link up a video that details how to do it. I'll set this up as a stream aquarium, so the plumbing will do best on the sides. I taped a corrugated plastic guide on the glass. I filled it with water and drilled through with a diamond-tipped hole saw. During this process, I periodically refill the guide to keep the bit from overheating. Despite what you may think, this process is really easy. I'll link up a video that explains it in detail. I went on to sand the edges. I also rinsed off the glass to remove debris. I was able to get 4 pieces from the broken tank and the 5th from a separate piece. Before putting them together, I usually tape along the edges for cleaner beads of silicone. While doing that, I make sure to account for the overlap. I went back with isopropyl alcohol and wiped down the edges where silicone will be applied. This removes oil and debris that could compromise the seal. From there, I applied silicone to the appropriate locations and assembled the tank. I taped the corners together as well. Then I go back and apply silicone to the inside of the tank. I smooth this out with my finger and remove the tape from the inside. I let it sit for 12 hours and removed the anchoring tape from the outside. I also decided to put a few braces on the top. The front piece of glass is slightly thinner than the others, so I added this for additional strength. I let the tank sit overnight while the silicone cured. After that, I went around with a razor and cleaned up the excess. I like to build my tanks on cardboard to make cleanup easier. After everything's cured, it can simply be cut off the bottom and any excess can be scraped off like before. Since this is a rimless tank, I also want to include a self-leveling mat. For this one, I have a 1/2 inch thick piece of neoprene. Usually I don't attach this to the tank, but it's more convenient if it is. For that I used rubber cement. I applied it to both surfaces and let it dry. On contact, the pieces bond together. I also need to add the bulkheads. For this one, I have 2 1/2 inch slip bulkheads. I put them in the holes and cemented 90-degree barbed elbows on the outsides. I used a threaded low-profile strainer for the filter's intake. I wrapped it up in thread tape so it fits snugly into the slip. I also attached a piece of foam core board to the back of the tank. I applied rubber cement along the edges, let it dry, and attached it to the back of the tank. In my opinion, the end result is pretty nice. It measures 36 inches wide, 11 inches deep, and 11 inches tall, which equates to roughly 19 gallons or 71.5 liters. I think it's a unique dimension and all of the dark elements will really complement the scape. As I said before, I'm setting this up to be a stream aquarium. I want the scape to stand out from my other setups, so I decided to use only dark materials. I have ash river rocks, small pebbles, black gravel, and black sand. As for the planting medium, I have a mixture of planted tank substrates from previous setups. Before placing those elements, I put down a piece of egg crate light diffuser to distribute the weight of the hardscape. In retrospect, this wasn't needed, but I didn't know how many stones I'd end up using. Afterward, I added the base layer of planted tank substrates. I didn't go overboard with this because I'm primarily using epiphyte plants that don't need substrate. For the remaining hardscape, I'm keeping it simple with a few branches of manzanita wood. Their directional nature will complement the stream aesthetic. Since they're so large, it only took a few minutes to scape. Sometimes it takes 4 hours, and other times it takes 4 minutes. I made sure that some of the branches touch the substrate. These areas will act as anchor points for slate stone. I used a masonry bit to drill through the stones. I used stainless steel screws to attach them to the wood. These won't rust and are safe to use in aquariums. I taped the pieces together before taking them out so I could remember how they were situated. I attached the stones to the anchor points from earlier. These pieces are no longer waterlogged. If I didn't do this, they would have floated away and ruined the scape. I also added a few more branches to finalize the wood layout. I filled in the front of the tank with sand. This and the plant substrates will make it easier to place the river rocks. Since these are rounded, they can be placed with less intent than more angular pieces. That said, I did my best to make it look like the branches were intertwined with them. I chose these types of stones to go with the stream aesthetic. After placing most of the large stones, I went back and added the accents. The smaller stones help add texture and give a better sense of scale. I also sprinkled in more sand to blend everything together. I repeated these steps throughout the entire setup until I achieved the look I wanted. I used a fan brush to fine-tune the look. For the plants, I went with Bulbitis hudaloti, Bulbitis deformis mini, Cryptocorn wenti, and Anubias nana petite. I wanted to keep this selection light so the plants complement the scape rather than overtake it. Like everything else, I started with the largest plant, the Bulbitis. Since these are epiphytes, I was able to wedge them between the driftwood and stones. I'm not planting them in the substrate. After that, I gave the tank a quick spray to keep them from drying out. Then I worked in all the crypts. These have to adjust to growing underwater, so they'll look a little different as they establish in the tank. Next were the accent plants, the mini Bulbitis and Anubias. These will help add more texture to the foreground. I gave the tank another spray to keep the plants hydrated. I used tap water in all of my tanks, so before filling it I made sure to add some Fritz A.C.C.R water conditioner. I also added Fritz Turbo Start nitrifying bacteria to jumpstart the cycle. Both of these were provided by Fritz Aquatics with a paid promotion. I went on to hook up the filter and fill the tank. For this one I'm using an external canister filter. The filter's intake is hooked up to the bulkhead and secured with a hose clamp. There's a similar setup on the other side of the tank, but I used barb elbows to transition into the smaller hoses that attach to the filter. What about stocking? I'm keeping it light at first with only a few inhabitants. I have 9 Pearl Danios, 1 Super Red Bristlenose Pleco, 4 Black Racer Nerite Snails, and 3 Amano Shrimp. Since I used the bacteria and have the filter filled with pre-cycled media, I'm fine to add these directly to the tank. Introducing the new low-tech stream aquarium. I think it turned out really well and is a great contrast to some of my other tanks. I can't wait to see how it matures once the plant's established. I think the simple design really showcases the plants and fish quite well. Danios are my favorite schooling fish, and bulbolineatus is my favorite aquatic plant, so the combination of those is also something I really enjoy. Long term, I'll build a wooden box that goes over the filter so you don't see it on the shelf. Like all of my other tanks, I'm keeping it simple. This system is on a 6-hour photo period with a basic LED strip light. It's not dosed with CO2 or liquid fertilizers. Occasionally I'll pop in a few root tabs, but that's the extent of it. My tap water is full of minerals, so my plants typically get everything they need from that and the animal waste. This is how I run all of my aquariums, and it works out great. You do not need high-tech equipment for beautiful results. Maybe at some point I can do a full breakdown on how I look after all of my aquariums with very little maintenance. In stocking this setup, I chose inhabitants that I felt would appreciate the flow and pop against the dark surfaces. Obviously I chose stuff I like as well. If you have any other stocking suggestions, let me know down in the comments. It has to be something that can tolerate moderate flow and will go well with the inhabitants I already have. Anyway, that's all I have for this one. As always, I really hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and leave the video with a like if you appreciate this type of content. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok for more. Until next time, Serpa Squad, take care and peace.